Hello my friends, this is part 3 in a series of videos on developmental astrology. We are going to see how John Coltrane greatly influenced the trajectory of my life, and the first step is to find the essential planetary configurations in his chart. So what we can do is we can look at his natal chart, notice the aspects with less than a 1 degree orb, and then look at the midpoint structures with an orb of less than a degree and a half. And especially very, very tight midpoint structures, like less than about 20 minutes. And then we see what vibration they are in. This is a standard process for finding major things in a person's chart. So let's see if he has any strong aspects, less than a degree, and let's look at the midpoint structures that are very tight. So here's what we see. Here's John Coltrane's birth chart. And there's a very conspicuous Mars square Jupiter. Now it's slightly over a degree orb, from exactly 18 Aquarius to 19 Taurus 15. That in itself is not extremely important to us, but interestingly, Mercury is making a sesquiquadrat to both Mars and Jupiter. All the aspect lines look thick. So we want to look at that midpoint structure of Mercury at the Mars-Jupiter midpoint to see how strong that is. So let's see if that midpoint structure is strong, and that would reinforce and make this a powerful 3-planet configuration. This is standard vibrational astrology analysis. So we go to the midpoint structures. And let me increase the size of this. In fact, let me stretch this out and see if I can magnify it a little bit. That's as big as we're going to get. Okay, hopefully that's big enough. Let me just stretch it a pinch more all the way out. In fact, I can stretch this out all the way. Just want you to see this clearly. So there's that Mercury opposition Mars-Jupiter midpoint. Let me pull up the pop-up wheel. Decrease the size of this a little bit. So again, there's that Mercury at 3 Libra making sesquiquadrats to Mars and Jupiter, and there's a 1-minute orb. Okay, so John Coltrane has a very powerful Mercury, Mars, Jupiter. Any midpoint structure with a 1-minute orb in the natal chart is extremely powerful, dominant influence in his life, and it's reinforced by the hard aspects to give it even more power. So that is very fundamental. Again, what we want to do here is see the dominant, powerful configurations in this person's chart. Then we will see how it affects us. Now we notice there's a midpoint isotrap here. That's also important. So we're seeing some other things that are important. In particular, let's look at that pop-up wheel again. Drag it over here. And so Saturn at 22 Virgo is at the Jupiter-Neptune midpoint, 23 minutes, and it's at the Uranus-Pluto midpoint. Midpoint isotraps are very, very powerful. So we see 2 configurations in his birth chart that are powerful, and that if they connect with someone, then this powerful quality of John Coltrane flows right into you. It just flows right in. If you remember that first video in this series where I show the Starry Night painting by Van Gogh, just imagine it just flows right into you. Okay, so let's go back to our PowerPoint. So in Coltrane's chart, we see the Mercury, Mars, Jupiter is in hard aspect with an extremely strong Mercury at the Mars, Jupiter midpoint, has only a 1-minute orb. So next we look at, and we see that very strong midpoint structure. Now what we might want to do, very common thing we do at this point, after we see this Mercury at opposition Mars, Jupiter, excuse me, with the extremely small orb, only a 1-minute orb. So what we want to do, we know it's an 8 vibration, but it may also be in some other vibration as well. So we go to listing, harmonic patterns listing number 1. This is standard vibrational astrology theory. If you've been studying vibrational astrology, you're familiar with the procedures that we use to analyze what's going on. And there's the Mercury opposition Mars Jupiter. Because it's a 1-minute orb, it's making a lot of vibrational connections. I've highlighted it here so that you see them. And we look at the orb and we see this one is the tightest one, only 4 degrees 15 minutes. This can go up to 16 degrees. So 4 degrees 15 minutes, very, very strong 75 vibration, which is 5 times 5 times 3. So now what we do is we can look at John Coltrane's 25 vibration chart to understand his Mercury, Mars, Jupiter configuration better. We want to understand the powerful configurations in this person who influenced us. So let's pull up his 25 vibration chart. Again, if you're familiar with vibrational astrology, everything I'm saying is standard basic vibrational astrology, and there's the grand trine. As we expect, it's 25 times 3. So it's a grand trine, and sure enough, it's very solid. I don't see a 4th planet involved. I just see the Mercury, Mars, Jupiter. Interesting, Mercury is involved with Sun and Saturn and Neptune. So there's another configuration involving Mercury, Sun, and a Saturn-Neptune conjunction. But that just pulls in Mercury, not 2 of the planets, just one of them. So there is that Mercury, Mars, Jupiter. It's just nice to see it, see if there was a 4th planet involved. Maybe there would be a 4th planet making a kite or conjunct one of them. There isn't. So we're just getting a feeling for what's going on with this extremely powerful Mercury, Mars, Jupiter configuration in Coltrane's chart. Okay. So what does it mean? What does it mean? How do we interpret this extremely powerful configuration? Even though there's only 3 planets, with a 1-minute orb, we have this rule in vibrational astrology. Any midpoint structure in the natal chart with under about a 20-minute orb is so strong you can just interpret it. Here it's a 1-minute orb, and it's a very strong grand trine in 25 vibration. 25 is creative out of the box. 5 times 5. Trine means it's a smooth flow, but a grand trine is not as smooth as just a trine by itself. It's sort of a dynamic, flowing, challenging, way out of the box. Mercury, Jupiter means big ideas. Mercury, Mars means let's really understand it and apply it. Mars, Jupiter means let's do something big, let's achieve something big. So what we have here is something that doesn't sound like music so much. It sounds like something grander, like he's trying to achieve, like engineer. We often talk about Mercury, Mars as like engineering, applying, using your ideas, seeing them like more tangibly achieve something. Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, he's trying to reach some big, out-of-the-box, creative vision and achieve it. Get to this big accomplishment and apply it. Something fresh and new and out of the box. Well, he was fresh and new and out of the box, but where's the Venus-Uranus? Where's the rhythm? Why is this so mental? He's not a philosopher. He's not a dreamer. He's not an architect of some new visionary way of life. He's just a saxophone player. I mean, we're expecting saxophone here, music, not Mercury, Mars, Jupiter. So at first this seems maybe a little surprising. Okay, let's continue. This is not a common configuration for a musician. We do not see this kind of configuration typically for musicians. You're going to see music stuff. Mercury, Venus, Uranus, Sun, Venus, Uranus. Well, it's interesting. I mean, people are more than just what their career choice is. So this is interesting. So I read the Wikipedia article and other articles about John Coltrane. I had never read about him before, as I mentioned. He's not a lasting influence in my life in the sense that I don't continue to listen to his music as an adult or follow him, or he's not a big hero to me. He was just a totally cool, intriguing person. That's all he was. And because my brother played his music all the time, I heard his music, over and over again. So I read some biographical information about him because, I want to see what's going on. And I found out that Coltrane was not primarily a musician. He's a person who used music to achieve his big dream. Music was a component in a larger vision that Coltrane had. This just, wow. When I read this, I must have frozen, like, whoa, because the music was not just the core of his life. It was a tool in a grander vision. Coltrane studied Aristotle. He was interested in Pythagorean ideas. He studied the latest ideas in physics. He also studied astrology. Some of his musical pieces have astrological terminology in them. So there are astrological references in some of his works. He also happened to be vegetarian. So he was seriously pursuing a Pythagorean dream. He talks about things like if you could play the right notes in music, you could make it rain. He had these visions. That's an engineering problem. Concrete results that you could heal people. This is like real stuff coming out of some spiritual vision of what life is all about and how it works. Whoa! Lots of people have these ideas and interests, but not as a fundamental primary pursuit in their lives. And that's what Coltrane was all about. And what do I end up doing as an adult? I actually end up following the thoughts of Coltrane without knowing it. I thought I was just listening to some wild, progressive ideas and jazz music that were intriguing and wow, listen to that Middle Eastern choir. I just thought, wow, this is cool, this is interesting. That was it. I respected it. I did not emulate it. I did not listen to it. It did not become a steady part of my life. But the soul of that music moved into me. And we're going to see the astrological configurations of how exactly that happened. It's amazing. These people that do not seem like they are heroes or leaders for you are. Because as I described in the first video in the series, our thoughts and our feelings are flowing in and around and through us. That's where they're coming from. So this Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, Grand Trine 25 vibe, I had no idea that there was this highly developed part of Coltrane. I just thought, wow, this guy's an amazing saxophone player. But it makes sense. When I read it, I said, whoa, that's what's going on behind the scenes. That's what's motivating this guy. Whoa, I ended up following a similar path, not even knowing that I was following similar thoughts and feelings and trajectory as Coltrane. Could I have connected to this important part of Coltrane's life directly without even knowing that he was on that trajectory? Could that have been going on? And then the answer I'm going to suggest is yes. There's a whole detailed energy flow going on that I'm not consciously aware of. Nobody's consciously aware of, and nobody could be consciously aware of. That's going on. So the impact is much greater than I would ever imagine. So what can we do to see how this part of Coltrane that I didn't even know existed at this level of detail? I just thought, I'm just going to look at his chart and see some cool, Mercury, Venus, Uranus stuff, and whatever, and maybe I'll see that connects to like a Venus, Uranus in my chart, and okay, great. So there's this nice, happy, swinging little thing going on. So we connected for a while. I had no idea how deep and pervasive a connection would be. I mean, I did not expect this. And over again, every person that gets into your blood is affecting you in some way. So let's make a bi-wheel with Coltrane's 25 vibe chart in the inner ring, because we're primarily interested in the other person. We're interested in the person who influenced you and how their quality enters into your life. So we're going to put him in the center in the inner ring, and mine in the outer ring, and we're going to see if his Mercury, Mars, Jupiter, his big philosophy of Mercury, Jupiter, his application of the ideas of Mercury, Mars, his idea that healing and other things that can come out of the music. There's like an engineering impact and this Pythagorean vision of the universe, and that the music is part of it to accomplish something big. Mars, Jupiter, does that connect with one or two planets in my chart to help it flow into me? Is there a direct channel for this from him to me? So if that person makes some sense to you, they don't even have to be the greatest, most wonderful thing, but if they make some sense and some interest for you, and it flows into you, vroom, it comes right into you. The impact of people in our lives is so tremendous. And here it is. So here is the grand trine that we just saw, the Mercury at 1 Capricorn, Jupiter at 29 Aries, almost 0 Taurus, and Mars at 1 Virgo. So they're between about 0 and 1 degrees of the Earth signs. His Mercury, Mars, Jupiter. This is Coltrane's 25 vibration chart in the center. And I put mine in the outer ring. And I have a Mercury-Venus conjunction in 25 vibration. It's almost exact. I mean, whoa. 29 Aries 53 and 0 Taurus 07, 14-minute orb. I don't usually think about it very much, or I'm not that aware of it. But Mercury, Venus in an exact, I mean, about as exact as you ever get, aspect, there they are in 25 vibration, right exactly on this grand trine. And one of the key things in compatibility is same planet to same planet. We have a Mercury-Mercury trine. So it's Coltrane's Mercury, Mars, Jupiter on my Mercury, Venus. So both configurations have Mercury. This strengthens it even more. It's exact. It's hitting 2 of my planets, and one of them is the same as his, Mercury, Mercury. That's all it takes. If that person's major configuration flows into you, you are changed. Something in you is amplified. A circuit goes into my Mercury, Venus 25 vibration. Our thoughts, our feelings are not generated by our brains, they're received by our brains. And this is received into my energy flow. And what's really important is the configuration in the other person's chart, because they are the ones influencing you. And the fact that I have 2 planets almost exact is enough. You do not need 3 planets. You need 3 planets in the other person's chart, in John Coltrane's chart in this case. If that impacts even 1 planet in your chart, and especially if it impacts 2, then those planets are getting defined. They are developing. I'm in a developmental stage. I'm a teenager. My nervous system is not going to be fully formulated until I'm about 25 years old. That Mercury-Venus part of me is being developed. Every part of you gets developed, triggered, amplified, and defined by these people. So what it means is my Mercury-Venus, my capacity as a writer, as a poet. I wrote a lot of poetry. I thought I might be a poet when I grew up. Writing is still a strong thing for me. You know, when I took the SAT tests to go into college, I score higher on verbal than I do on the mathematical, even though in the astrology world I'm considered to be Mr. Mathematician and technician and astronomer. Creative writing is a huge part for me, and Coltrane has amplified that. Also, my Mercury Venus is trine Neptune. Not extremely strong, but it's there. It's within orb. We have, well, a little over a 5-degree orb. It's there. It's, 2.5, 3 degrees. It's there. And my Neptune is on his Mars. So the third planet is involved in this. And I also have a Mercury Venus Uranus. I drew a circle around it, and that spreads only 7 degrees. That's a solid Mercury Venus Uranus, which has to do with music. Venus Uranus. I do write songs, Mercury Venus Uranus. The way I was intrigued by the melody lines, the chords. I heard his music and I go, what kind of scales, or what is he doing? Because I was studying music theory. I had memorized all the scales and chords. I mean, to this day, say to me like F major 7. It's FACE. Are you impressed? I mean, measure, D major 7, D F sharp A C. D major, 7 would be C sharp instead of C in the. I mean, I just memorized all this stuff. I just did. So I was aware of the scales and different minor chord patterns and whatever. And I heard his music and I went, oh, whoa. This is something very sophisticated and unusual going on. This is just not so. Anyway, that Mercury, Venus, Uranus, I was aware of it. That part I was conscious of. That the configuration is triggering that whole thing. So the imagination, the stepping out of the box, the creativity, the Pythagorean thinking, all of this being developed through this attunement to these particular tunes. Like I think I said it in the first video of the series, I probably heard Coltrane's My Favorite Things, his most popular tune of all, I think probably over 100 times. Again, it was not something that I adored. It's not something that I worshipped. Coltrane was not a hero to me. But the impact was greater than I thought. His, we'll call it genius, his creative vision flowing right directly into me. And there I am, listening intently, mystified, intrigued, as it flows right in. Wow. I mean, of all the musicians, he's one I thought of. Just the fact that you even think of that person at all. There it is. So the impact is so much greater than we would imagine. So let's read what I have here. I have a Mercury and Venus in a very strong 25 vibration and also solid 25 vibration to Uranus, as I mentioned. In my 25 vibe, it shows that these are 1/25, 2/25, and 3/25 aspects in the natal chart. Well, we could pull up my 25 vibration chart. Let me bring this over a little bit so you can see this whole thing, what I'm doing. So what am I doing? Oh, drag this over there. Okay, so if I'm looking at my chart, if I pull up my 25 vibration chart, and we look at it, there's the Mercury, Venus, Uranus. A little hard to see, but it says here 1/25, 2/25, 3/25. So in the birth chart, that's the aspects that are happening. So if we go back to the birth chart, the distance of Mercury and Venus is 1/25. Mercury to Uranus must be 2/25, and Venus to Uranus must be the 3/25. Just interesting to see what exactly is going on. We're not that concerned in vibrational astrology with exactly what the configuration is, but it's curious, to look at it and and see what's happening. Just to understand this a little bit more, in case that's not clear to you, just very, very quickly, if I bring up a calculator, it's like, so here's a calculator. If I type 1/25 and I type times 3, so it's 14.4 degrees, which is 14 degrees 24 minutes. That's the distance exactly from Mercury to Venus. 4 degrees 24 minutes, 1/25 of the circle. And Mercury Uranus is twice that. So there's a Mercury, exact Mercury Venus, and then the Uranus. And so when you look at the 25 vibration chart, there they are. And so Coltrane's Grand Trine and 25 vibration ties right into that connection. And what we're seeing in this compatibility is that every little part of your chart, they're like little building blocks. It's like a wall, and each little building block gets influenced. It gets cemented together. It gets developed. It gets articulated by the people in our lives. So it's the big configuration in Coltrane's chart, activating specific little parts of my chart and giving them definition. That's how it works. Each little piece of the puzzle is getting defined. The trajectory and development of it is being influenced, is being articulated by these powerful effects from the people that enter into our lives. That's the way to understand what's going on. Coltrane's large configuration working in on this part of my chart. This part of my chart is not one of the biggest things in my life. It's one of the biggest things in Coltrane's life, building and developing the specific connections. It's like the synapses are being developed and triggered and organized according to these influences in our lives. So this configuration means that Coltrane's way of thinking works its way into my flair for poetic and sensitive thought. My Mercury-Venus trine Neptune, this poetic, I still write poems to this day. So Coltrane's pattern is stronger. His gift strengthens and entrains my imagination and adds breadth to my capabilities. So the poets, the artists, the creative visionary people that I interact with are going to have a major impact on this quality in me, which again, it's not one of the strongest things in my life, but it is there. It is there. This Mercury-Venus trine my Neptune. I put it in green to show that my Neptune is also part of this. Not quite as strong, but solidly there. Not quite as strong as the Mercury-Venus, but solidly there. That's how it works, my friends. Now, this is just the beginning of this. This connections between Coltrane and me, we're going to see this is very, very intricate. The cosmic tapestry, the energetic systems are so intricate and delicate, it's amazing. And when we will follow this even further. So the impact and importance of hearing Coltrane's music regularly as a child and as a teenager is much greater and much more profound than I realized. I couldn't imagine it would be this profound and this direct until I looked at the chart comparison. And the ways in which it's influenced the trajectory of my life, I think, are much more direct and real than I would have imagined. And why did I become an astrologer? I think this is part of it. This developmental astrology is important. Who these people are, what their message is, what their vision is, enters into your life stream. Could Coltrane's interest in astrology, philosophy, physics, and connections between science and mysticism get infused into my Mercury-Venus-Uranus and my Mercury-Venus-Neptune configurations? And have they influenced my life work? The answer is yes, I think they have. It was an energetic, unconscious process revealed through the astrology that I had no clear awareness of. All I knew is, yeah, Coltrane's cool, dig it, man. I had no idea. So, again, if you think back to the first video in the series and that painting of Van Gogh's Starry Night, the way in which these vortexes of energy flow into us and the way each component in us is developed, we are seeing through the synastry. So the power and impact of people in our lives is enormous. It is enormous. Now it gets even more intricate. We're going to go on to another step. All we've done so far is look at only one configuration in Coltrane's chart. What we're going to do next, and we will start the next video in the series with this, is we're going to see what other configurations are strong in Coltrane's chart, and we're going to see something more mind-boggling, even more extraordinary than what we already saw, which is already pretty amazing. And what I'm saying is that this developmental astrology is going to help us understand the trajectory of our lives, the decisions we've made, the ways we think, and the ways we feel. The impact of people in our lives is huge, much greater than I even imagined. Okay, and I've seen this numerous times. I'm just illustrating the concepts here. Okay, we're going to stop here and continue with this next analysis of what is strong in Coltrane's chart, and does it act, and then see if it activates something in my chart. And wow, this is really, really amazing. Okay, I'll see you in the next video in the series. Thank you very much for being a part of this, my friends. God bless. Namaste.